RFK gets another penalty. This time it is Chris Buescher and Jimmie Johnson and Josh Berry both have special paint schemes with stories behind them. So let's talk about it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, it is official. There have been rumors swirling around the 17 of Chris Buescher having a huge penalty levied against him after, of course, the Kansas race. So let's take a look at what that penalty eventually was. This from Nate Ryan, who is quoting Brad Moran from Hauler Talk. Unfortunately, the number 17 did not meet the rule that had a larger area than was permitted to be bonded into the nose piece. Moran said they can work in that area, but they went too far, would be the simplest terms of putting it. So obviously the area of the car he's talking about is the nose, and you can repair or make adjustments or repairs or whatever when that gets worn out, because they didn't want pieces thrown away, I guess. Wanted teams to be able to reuse these parts, I guess, to keep costs down. I don't know, maybe we'll get into that in just a minute. But the area they worked on, they used too big of an area to work on it. And obviously it's the front nose. There's huge aero advantage to be gained there. Was it just an honest mistake? Were they trying to get an advantage aero-wise? That's anybody's guess. But letter of the law, rule book, they are, of course, penalized for this. And from that same article, that penalty will consist of this. Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing Team was penalized 60 driver and owner points, 5 driver and owner playoff points, and fined $75,000. Crew chief Scott Graves will also be suspended from the All-Star and Coca-Cola 600. So obviously you're losing your crew chief there for the All-Star, not a points-paying race, so that's not a big deal. The Coke 600... we've seen teams work around this. Obviously, there's other types of communications. He will probably be, Mr. Graves will probably be sitting in the command booth down there at RFK and calling the shots from there, but you'll have to have somebody else on site, have a presence there to make those calls and things like that. So not ideal, but we have seen teams work around that. The $75K is a significant penalty, especially with all the stuff you see going on. With teams having trouble finding sponsors and stuff like that. RFK doesn't seem to be one of those teams, at least this season. However, we've seen way bigger fines, so obviously that's not going to be the bigger deal either. The points, though, the points are always going to be what hurts. The 60 points took him from 12th in the points all the way down to 24th. And a lot of people are saying now Chris Buescher is in a win or go home situation. He has to get a win this season. However, when I look at the point standings, I don't think it is quite to that level yet, because here's why I say that. 60 points is a significant penalty, but he is only 27 points out of 15th place. Josh Berry currently sits in 16th place. He has a win, so I'm skipping over 16th, so that's why I'm talking about 15th place. 15th place, however, is his teammate Ryan Preece, who had a penalty, which we'll talk about here in just a minute as well. But he only has 251 points. Chris Buescher now has 224 points. That is only a 27-point spread. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is only 9 points above Preece, so I don't think you're in necessarily a win or go-home situation. I think you can still point your way into the playoffs as long as somebody way lower than that, say like a Brad Keselowski or somebody who's really out of the points or really far behind you points-wise wins a race. I think you still have the opportunity to get in there by just stacking up points. Like, there's no need to put that pressure on you just yet, the way the point standings are right now, to get that win or go-home mentality. But Brad Moran went on to talk further about it in that article from NASCAR.com and Nate Ryan again. As the car was being developed, we recognized we were doing damage to the nose of the car, and we didn't want to be using up good parts on repairs, Moran said. We put out communications that were very clear and specific that teams could strengthen behind the foam, which is where the cracking and damage occurred during races. Where there was cracking and damage during the races. It was an area around the foam that you're allowed 2 inches, and it was beyond that, which is a rule violation. They were allowed to modify that area, but not to the extent that they did, and that's why it turned into an L1. So there you go. The reason it wasn't an L2 penalty, a lot of people were like, oh, this is going to be an L2 penalty, a big, huge penalty, bigger fine, bigger points. It didn't raise to that level because, according to Brad Moran, teams are allowed to work in this area. They just exceeded the limits, and I guess from what he's saying there, they probably didn't exceed it by a whole lot. But they obviously could have been trying to get an advantage there instead of just repairing it. So by letter of the law, letter of the rule there, this is a penalty, so it is an L1, and that is why they went with the penalty that they went with and didn't escalate it to a level 2. But it brings into question what is going on over there at RFK Racing. Are they really pushing it to the absolute limit over there? Because like I said, we saw Ryan Preece with the washers over there in Talladega. He lost all the race points for that one because he got disqualified. Now we see a 60-point fine over there from Chris Buescher. Both of these guys were way in front of teammate Brad Keselowski. Is Brad Keselowski's car playing it by the book? Is that why he is so far off the pace compared to his teammates? And just for the numbers of that, 33rd in points right now is Brad Keselowski, no top 10s. He has 148 points. That is 103 from Ryan Preece, who is the highest running RFK driver, who is in 15th in points. So from that perspective, obviously Brad Keselowski is in a win or go home situation. He's out there going for wins. We saw that this weekend at Kansas where he went aggressive with the air pressures there and tried to zoom it on the outside. Eventually the tire gave up, but I did like the aggression trying to win the race. However, it does ask the question here, is RFK trying to push it too hard, or were these honest mistakes? You're going to have varying opinions on both. I'll let the season play out. I don't work at RFK. I don't have any real opinion on it. They could absolutely be pushing it too far, trying to get every single advantage. Every race team's trying to do that. But are they intentionally cheating? I don't know if we can answer that. Also, the way these fell, this was only a level 1 penalty, and it was just one extra washer over there at Talladega. Obviously these things could legitimately be oversights. You see it all the time. I forget who happened it to this year, but somebody's hood flew up because they forgot to put the hood pins in. Sometimes there are legitimate oversights. I don't think we're far enough long into the season to say that, yes, they're obviously intentionally cheating, because these are two things that could be obvious oversights, because I think it would have been an L2 penalty, obviously, if they had thought that RFK was really trying to aggressively skirt the rules there with exceeding the 2 inches that they could work on the nose area there. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Moving right along, we have a couple of paint schemes to talk about here, and the stories behind them are more important. Typically, I don't do a whole lot of paint scheme talk, but these stories behind these 2 paint schemes are very important, so let's jump into those, starting with Jimmie Johnson. This, a press release from Legacy Motor Club. After a strong 3rd place finish at the 2025 Daytona 500, Johnson returns to the Charlotte Motor Speedway, a venue where he has earned 8 Cup Series victories, including 4 in the prestigious Coca-Cola 600. The design honors Johnson's storied career with Hendrick Motorsports and now as co-owner and driver with Legacy Motor Club. This milestone start is commemorated with a dynamic throwback design featuring Johnson's signature neon yellow numbers and a nod to his championship-winning 48 alongside Carvana's distinctive branding and American flag-inspired stripes for a modern, patriotic look. The special throwback design celebrates Jimmie's legendary NASCAR career, said Reed Keaton, Carvana co-founder and chief brand officer. Reaching 700 starts is a remarkable milestone, and we're proud to celebrate it alongside him. We're excited to share this meaningful tribute with fans and honor Jimmie Johnson's lasting legacy in the sport. So there you go. They're throwing every Easter egg they can possibly throw into it. The American flag being worked into it is not only for Memorial Day, but if you remember some of those wins that Jimmie Johnson had, he had the Lowe's scheme, and they were very patriotic back in that era when he was winning those 4 Coca-Cola 600 races, 3 of which were in a row. 2003, 2004, 2005, he won it, and then again in 2014. And I also like that they're incorporating the yellow back into it, and it's a blue car. Speaking of which, this is what the car looks like. Probably should have thrown this up earlier. But yeah, you see it right there. Probably one of his best-looking cars, if not his best-looking car, since he has joined Legacy Motor Club. And it just begs the question, with his really good finish at Daytona, where he got that top 5, does he have another one in him? Like I just mentioned, he's 700 starts, 7 championships, 83 wins. He's got 4 wins at the Coke 600 itself. Is this going to be another magic day like we saw in Daytona this year, earlier this season, where he got the top 5 finish there? Does he have another top 5 in him? Everything's kind of lining up. It could go either way. Obviously, we've seen him finish poorly with Legacy Motor Club as well, but this paint scheme looking really good. It looks like everything's kind of lining up for Jimmie Johnson. Maybe, does he have another top 5 in him? I don't know, but it is a really cool tribute paint scheme. Speaking of which, the Wood Brothers have one with a good story behind it as well. Josh Berry and the Wood brothers are headed to historic North Wilkesboro Speedway for Sunday's NASCAR All-Star race. The Dix Imaging Mustang will carry a paint scheme based on the one Michael Waltrip drove to a dramatic victory in 1996, running the non-point spectacular then known as the Winston Select. As the Woods celebrate their 75 years in the sport, the win by Waltrip is one of the all-time highlights. Waltrip and the 21 were not considered a contender entering the weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They had to run the preliminary open and barely squeaked into the starting field for the main event, finishing 5th to take the final transfer spot to the main event. In that 70-lap race, Waltrip drove through the field, taking the lead from Dale Earnhardt in the final segment with 9 laps remaining. He then drove away from the pack to take the win over Rusty Wallace, Dale Earnhardt, Mark Martin, and Terry Labonte. The win was a big boost for the Woods at the time. They needed one, and it gave Waltrip the funds to buy his mother a new home. And this, of course, is what the car Josh Berry's driving will look like. And this is the car that Michael Waltrip won with that they are throwing back to, so not bad at all. That, of course, from a Wood Brothers release, and a really cool story. I never actually knew the full extent of that story. I remember the race. I remember Michael Waltrip winning. I remember him getting the last transfer spot to get into the All-Star race itself after the Winston Select or whatever it was called back then. But I didn't know the story that he bought his mom a house with the winnings. I knew it was a huge win for the Wood brothers because they hadn't won in quite some time, so it was a huge victory for them. But I just never knew. I never knew financially how much that helped Michael Waltrip. So really cool story. You learn something every day. It's a cool story. Glad they're running it, and really great scheme. All right, that's all I got for you on this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. Peace.